Hi, everyone. My name is John Faulkner. I'm your host of the Smarter Systems, Better Care podcast. I'm here today with Janine McMurdie. She is the Chief Commercial Officer at Pictor, where she brings visionary leadership and a passion for advancing precision diagnostics to the rapidly evolving world of proteomics and patient care. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, John. It's nice to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. So let's just kind of give our listeners some context today. Tell us a bit about your background and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so I started my career in genomics. So graduate school studying orphan diseases, went on to Amgen, where I led a lab that did sequencing and cloning. And I think that that's where I really developed a passion for patient-centered care, and really wanted to make sure that my career was focused on, improving the human condition. So through a series of events, I went to the tool provider side. So I worked for Applied Biosystems, which eventually became Life Technologies, and then Thermo Fisher by, acquisition. And then I went on to really help them develop the diagnostic space in next gen sequencing. So working with real visionaries in the field. And then I went on to smaller companies and realized that that's really where I had a passion, could make a larger impact. And so through a series of roles, went through Agena Bioscience and then to Mobile Ion Systems, which was more proteomics based facing, and then ended up at my new opportunity, which is Pictor. And the reason that, I was really excited about that is that it's an opportunity to make advanced proteomic testing more accessible. And, if it's accessible and affordable and easy to use, then it can impact more patients.
Absolutely. And do you mind kind of expanding more on the topic of proteomics, like exactly what it is, just for our audiences so they have a better understanding?
Yeah. So, I feel like we're in the field of proteomics where we were in genomics probably about 15 plus years ago, right? In sort of this really exciting time where we're still exploring, getting to understand what the proteome is. So in genomics, that's your blueprint, right? So you're born with your genome. It really doesn't change much over time. And, we know a little bit more now, right, with methylation and things like that. But in general, the 3 billion bases you're born with, yeah, are the same that you conclude your life with. Well, your proteome is really what's actually happening in real time. So that's more the architecture of your biology, is what's happening in your proteome, and that's changing and evolving over time. So again, I don't think we really understand the true complexity of our proteome yet, and we may never, right? Because there are so many things that influence it. It can be changed on a daily basis by what you eat, how you exercise, what kind of sleep you got. So it's really the critical nature of, all biological systems, not just humans.
Absolutely. So you're kind of dealing with like real time that's kind of evolving with time, and then kind of different functions in the space as well. Is kind of what you're focused on with smaller companies, is where you're kind of where you feel like you're making the biggest impact today through your work, right?
Yeah, I agree. Smaller organizations, more innovation, higher risk taking, right? So higher reward. It's all incredibly valuable.
Absolutely. And like, what's the core focus of your business today, and how do you serve your clients that you're working with?
Yeah, so we are a platform company. So we have a platform that is multiplex proteomics, and the platform itself is devised of three components. So we have sort of the kits and the wet lab component, where you're actually taking a biological sample through a process to elucidate, the particular biomarkers that you're interested in. And then we have a reader that reads those assays. And then we have AI-based software that actually interprets the data. And what's really different and relevant about what we're doing is that we are multiplexing at a very high capacity
Yeah.
per sample. And then we're also multiplexing multiple samples. So we can look at 96 individual samples across, 50 biomarkers in, less than a couple of hours. And
It's
that's
amazing.
pretty revolutionary.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's I feel like it's the perfect confluence of events with where the proteomics discovery work is now, right? We're finding all these great biomarkers, and we need to have a platform that can move them into a diagnostic space so that they can be available for clinical decision support.
Absolutely. And when you look at your role too right now as a chief commercial officer, like where do you spend the most energy driving growth right now?
Well, we really have three different groups that we serve. So one is clinical labs, right? So that are doing these multiplex proteomics in a diagnostic setting. Also diagnostic manufacturers and CROs. So they really have the need to customize panels. So the flexibility in our platform is really, really important. And then to be able to scale that workflow. And then the third area is in animal health labs and vet clinics. So affordability, portability, and speed are really essential. It's a very price sensitive market, but it's also a very growing market. So it's an exciting place to be.
Yeah, sounds like it for sure. And like, what's one shift in your industry that most leaders in the space are not paying enough attention to?
Yeah, well, I think we talked a little bit about, the shift from from genomics going
The
into
promoting.
proteomics.
Yeah,
So, that is definitely an emerging area. It probably took, depending on where you want to start, but from when we were actually talking about the genome to looking at diagnostics, 15 to 20 years for it, this really impactful scientific breakthrough to move from research and discovery into clinical decision support. And so we're at that apex with proteomics today. One thing I don't think that, I didn't even appreciate is that 95% of FDA approved drugs are based on proteins. And we don't even know what the proteome means, right? So, there's so many different interactions. So when these drugs are targeting proteins and the proteome is this ever shifting space, I think that there's still so much left to learn. And, making proteomics accessible is really important. And that means, to be base about it, it's fast, cheap, and easy, right? You need to have a platform that is accessible. It is iterative and it can actually move as rapidly as this field is developing.
yeah, absolutely. It sounds like there's a lot of developments. It sounds like maybe even the last 5 years, even it sounds like things are just moving so quickly now. And you've been really innovative about your processes as well. So it sounds like you've been adapting to that, which is great. And then, like, what happens if businesses ignore this shift? They don't if they're not innovative or taking these extra steps.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, the bottom line is the patient suffers, whether it's your pet or a production animal or a human being. I think that if we ignore this information and this, incredibly impactful set of data that can actually help, whether it's longevity research or it is, whether a particular disease can be managed sooner, better, then we miss out on that opportunity. I think it will come, but grasping it now and kind of being on the forefront of it is just, every week or month we wait is missed opportunity, and that really impacts global health.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if it's not perfect, too, is kind of what I think we're getting at as well. It's like we just need to keep moving forward and learn from our mistakes and keep going from there, right? So,
Yeah, precisely. Precisely.
and then when you look at your day-to-day operations, where do things feel clunky right now or slower than you'd like to see?
Yeah, I feel like, everything moves slower than you would like it to, especially when you're in a startup and we feel like we're moving at the speed of light. So I think that we have some things that are working really well. We have some great relationships with everything from the human health to the production health to the veterinary health world. We have some really great case studies that have come out with our work with Protein and Texas A&M. But the excitement is very hard to translate into clinical practice. And some of that is because we have to be careful, right? We want to make sure that we are doing all of, we are enabling clinical trials and we are enabling the ability to move this science forward and into the clinic. But because we're a platform company, we're reliant on our partners, right? So it's getting partnerships signed and enabling them to do their work. And everybody has competing priorities, and focusing on this one and making sure that that is their highest priority and that we keep this front and center.
Absolutely. And you kind of mentioned like what's already working really well. So like even a better question is like what's working really well that you would never want to lose?
Yeah, and I think it's the momentum that we are having with partners, right? They're really seeing the value in what we can provide in terms of not just these large panels, but the fact that we can iterate them very quickly. And we're moving into different areas, right? We have infectious disease is definitely one of our top priorities, but also moving into oncology. So just the commercial traction that we have had with our partners has been really phenomenal, and definitely don't want to lose that. But what has to go along with that is the investments. We've had some great early investment, and we're just moving into a US Series A round because we've recently brought our organization's headquarters to the United States from New Zealand. So it is those are the things, I want to keep those partnerships moving forward and the investment, because we have a lot of opportunity to even improve our platform further. But those are the two things that we need to ensure that that will happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And how big is your team now? Is it, do you have a lot of staff that you're working with, or just curious how big your company is at the moment?
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a few dozen people globally, right? So we have an office in New Zealand, which is where we started, our original headquarters. We maintain R&D and operations there, and some manufacturing. And now we have our global headquarters that is based in Carlsbad, California. We also have a sales team that's based in India, and then a small team in Australia. So we are global, and
Global.
we are definitely lean, but we have the opportunity to make sure that our teams continue to expand responsibly. Right? We are a startup. We are dealing with a lean budget, and we're doing it in the most appropriate ways possible. And to that end, how we're growing our company is by relationships with partners. Right? We can do so many different things that we really want to focus on strategic partners, and they know their industry. They know where their pain points are, and they know where their unmet needs are, and that we can help there. But we are not going to build a global sales team and be selling into all the individual labs. It's really meant to be these very strategic partnerships that we move forward a weekly and monthly basis.
Yeah, maintaining the rapport with those people, those persons and companies sounds like it's really vital to your growth as well.
Absolutely.
And then looking
Absolutely.
at like the alternative, so what's been harder than expected? Like you said, your startup, despite all the effort that you've put in.
Yeah. So if you think about the diagnostics industry, like I felt this in genomics at the beginning. There was a lot of resistance, like actually looking at multiple biomarkers in the genome for clinical practice, really putting those diagnostics into place. We had to find visionaries who understood that this was a long-term play, and it was going to be a little painful at the beginning because clinicians and those in the diagnostic world, it's not a world that moves really rapidly. It's a world that is very measured, and rightly so, right? You're dealing with lives, and you need to make sure that you really take the time and do the diligence, go through the trials before you bring these things into clinical practice. And we're seeing the same in proteomics. ELISAs have been around for a long time, but those are markers that have been discovered decades ago potentially, and are singleplex. So it's a very tiny data point, and so moving into these larger panels. So yeah, it takes education and it takes trust building, and we're basically translating cutting edge science into everyday lab operations, and that's a journey that is definitely takes longer than expected.
Absolutely, because they may have been using traditional methods, and you're coming in here as like, hey, I might have a better way. But unfortunately, in healthcare doesn't always move at the speed of innovation. So is what we found. So
Exactly. Yeah.
it's a lot of trust building and making your point heard. So definitely understand that. And like,
Yeah,
it's,
and it's also, I think that one of the other challenges with diagnostics labs is they don't want to have a one trick pony, right? They don't want to bring in a platform that does one thing unless it's, crazy high volume, then maybe, right? But in general, they need something that is a tool that can do a variety of things, right? And maybe replace other things in the laboratory. And this is what the Pictar platform really is it something that we can build a test that is either bespoke or something that they're already using that then we can multiplex multiple analytes together and then we can build another and another and another, right? So it could really be a consolidator in diagnostics labs. And I do think that that's one area where that's helping us get traction is, it's not just one test, one platform.
yeah, absolutely. And if you were to solve like all your bottlenecks today, like what would success look like in 6 to 12 months?
Yeah. So, I mean, it would be real measured traction with big partners, kind of blockbuster tests that are moving forward clinical decision support. As I keep saying, it will help improve our product roadmap, right? So we can accelerate that, more markers per well, faster, more sensitive, all sorts of improvements on the platform and really showing impact in the field. So, showing faster results, decisions that actually reach patients, pets, and farmers even.
Yeah, it's an amazing goal to definitely shoot for and achieve. And then like once you even achieve that, what's like the bigger goal? Like it's what's way down the road.
Yeah, well, I think about maybe it's aligned with my personal goal of really democratizing access to high quality diagnostics. And to me, to have a platform that really can be deployed as well as centralized, this could change underserved markets and, truly, truly democratize what we're trying to do. So that is the definitely pie in the sky goal that I would love to see come to fruition.
Excellent. And I'm sure everyone else would as well. Basically
Yes.
increasing better access to care, like in a nutshell, right? Yeah. And thank you for, joining the podcast today and really enjoyed your time and your insight. Where can people find you if they want to connect and learn more?
Right. So I'm definitely on LinkedIn always. And our website is pictordx.com, PICTORDX.com. And you can always put in a request to speak to someone there. But this has been a real pleasure, John. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great discussion, and I'm sure our audience will get a lot out of it, and they'll be reaching out soon. So thank you for your time.
Wonderful. Take care, John. Bye bye.
You too.